Hello everyone, welcome back to the continuation of lesson 3, and this is my second asynchronous video. The first one was about the hookworms, the human and the animal hookworms, and this video naman will focus on the threadworm or Strongyloides stercoralis. Let's start. Okay, Strongyloides stercoralis, the common name is threadworm, and it is described as the smallest nematode in man. It is a free-living or parasitic parasite. So, meron siyang version na free-living, meron din namang version na parasitic. The host is man and the habitat is small intestine. Just like the hookworms, the mode of transmission is skin penetration. And the mode of living is facultative. What does facultative mean again? So, pag facultative, there is a portion in its life cycle that is free living, and then there is a portion that is parasitic. The infective stage, just like our hookworms, is L3 filariform larva, while the diagnostic stage is L1 rhabditiform larva. L1 larva or rhabditiform larva. Okay, take note, this is the first parasite na ang diagnostic stage niya ay not egg. Okay? Before, kahit na inhalation yan or skin penetration yan, ang diagnostic stage ay laging egg. Or pwedeng egg and adult. But this time, here, very clear, no? Ang diagnostic stage ng threadworm ay rhabditiform larva. So, bakit kaya rhabditiform larva yung nakikita sa stool sample? Okay. For the eggs, ayan, sabi natin kanina, di ba, the eggs of the hookworms and the threadworm are indistinguishable. So, they are similar, although some say, or some reference say na mas, mas smaller yung shell or yung space between the shell and the ovum is smaller in threadworm, parang dito, mas masikip siya. Pero generally, magkamukha pa rin sila and it will still be very difficult to differentiate them. And so, thin-shelled din ang Strongyloides stercoralis. For the rhabditiform larva, di ba sabi ko, dun sa previous video natin, kailangan natin i-standby yung information na binigay natin kanina. Kasi, i-compare na natin siya ngayon sa rhabditiform larva naman ng ating Strongyloides stercoralis. This time, okay, the threadworm is smaller than the hookworm. It has now an elongated esophagus with a pyriform posterior bulb. It is less attenuated or thicker ang kanyang tail and a shorter buccal cavity and larger genital primordium. Let us now compare the rhabditiform of hookworms and threadworms. Kanina sabi natin, and larger daw ang hookworm, longer buccal cavity, shorter esophagus, smaller genital primordium, and thinner or more attenuated tail. Pag threadworm naman or Strongyloides, smaller, shorter buccal cavity, longer esophagus, larger genital primordium, and less attenuated or thicker tail. Kung ito-drawing natin sila, ganyan po yung pinagkaiba. Ito po yung pyriform bulb na sinabi kanina. Sorry, yung bagal talaga ng laser. Pyriform bulb. And ayun o, kung mapapansin natin, shorter yung kanyang mouth, tapos longer yung kanyang esophagus. Dito naman, mas patusok, dito na lang, mas maganda dito, mas patusok po or mas attenuated ang tail ng hookworm compared sa threadworm. Sa filariform larva naman, how can we differentiate them? Ayan, so the best way to differentiate, dito tayo sa filariform ang hookworm filariform and Strongyloides filariform is yung tail ng hookworm ay pointed, pero yung tail ng Strongyloides filariform ay notched. Okay? Pag hookworm, point lang. Ayan, pointed lang. Kapag threadworm, notched. Ayan. So, for the filariform larva of your Strongyloides, it is just like the hookworm, no? Non-feeding stage. Closed na po ang mouth. It is small and slender. And it has a distinct notched tail. And just like the hookworm, ito na din po yung infective stage niya. Hindi na niya kaya, hindi na pwedeng soil lang, no? Kailangan niya ng human host para maging adult and makapag-reproduce. And this is what the notched tail of the Strongyloides stercoralis looks like. Let's now look at the general morphology of the adult. Dito muna tayo sa female kasi sa female adult, there are two versions. Sabi nga natin kanina sa first slide natin that the Strongyloides stercoralis can be free-living, pwede din siyang parasitic. And did you know, ayan o, diba, fun fact about Strongyloides, na kapag nandun tayo sa kanyang parasitic version, yung life cycle niya or yung generation niya na parasitic siya, iba yung shape niya or yung morphology niya versus doon sa generation niya na free living siya. Okay, so let us discuss. For the parasitic version of the female adult, we can see that it is slightly over 2 millimeters, semi-transparent, finely striated cuticle, short conical pointed tail, and the buccal cavity or the mouth, the anterior end, has 4 indistinct lips. Pero ang pinaka-important dun sa lahat ay yung mode of reproduction niya, which is ovoviviparous. Okay? So kapag ovoviviparous, ano nga ulit ibig sabihin nito? Do they release mature eggs or immature eggs? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 answer. They release mature eggs na or embryonated eggs na. And when we were talking about Capillaria philippinensis before, anong sabi natin? Kapag ovoviviparous yung female adult, may tendency siyang maging auto-infective. Kasi hindi pa nailalabas sa stool ang egg, nag-hatch na agad, nag-cause na agad ng new cycle of infection. It also applies here. Okay? O, ngayon pala, alam na natin na Strongyloides stercoralis is capable of auto-infection because of its ovoviviparous nature. Kapag female free-living version naman, it is described to be shorter and smaller, and it has a muscular double-bulbed esophagus. So, ganyan yung itsura ng female adult. Before I proceed, ano tong term na to? Bakit may lumabas na ganyan? Parthenogenetic. What does parthenogenetic or parthenogenicity mean? Ibig sabihin na in the life cycle of Strongyloides stercoralis, it does not need a male adult, no, in order to fertilize the eggs. Meaning, self-fertilizing. Ganon. So again, for Strongyloides stercoralis, hindi lang sila ovoviviparous na nakakapag-produce ng mature eggs agad. They are also parthenogenetic, which means they can fertilize their own eggs. Paano natin to mas ma-appreciate? If you remember, when we were discussing Ascaris lumbricoides before, sabi natin, di ba, if the female adult did not copulate with the male adult, ano lang ang lalabas? Unfertilized eggs na wala nang hope to hatch later on. Kasi unfertilized siya, para lang siyang menstruation, ganon. Pero, sa Strongyloides stercoralis, okay lang kahit walang adult. Sabi niya, I am a strong, independent woman. Isa lang. I'm a strong, independent woman. Sabi niya, I can fertilize my own eggs. And this trait, yung pagiging parthenogenetic niya, it further contributes to the parasitism of the parasite. Kasi, pas lumevel up pa siya, no, sa survival niya and sa pagiging parasitic niya dahil number 1, hindi niya na kailangan ng partner. Number 2, yung eggs na pinaproduce niya, infective na, or not infective, ready to hatch na agad. So that is the superpower of Strongyloides stercoralis. For the male adult naman, medyo hindi siya importante. Pero in the free-living version of the life cycle of Strongyloides, important siya. And kasi nakakatulong siya sa, syempre, pag-reproduce ng ating free-living female version din naman. It has a ventrally curved tail and it has 2 copulatory spicules and no caudal alley. And it also has a gubernaculum, which is a supporting structure for its reproductive organs. Let us now go to the life cycle of Strongyloides stercoralis. So, dito muna tayo sa yung kung paano siya napunta sa human. Ayan, number 6. Ayan, dito muna tayo sa number 6. So, once upon a time, okay. So, once upon a time, merong filariform larva, ganun din, na nasa upper layer of the soil. And, however, itong filariform larva na to ay meron siyang notched tail. Diba? Nandito, notched tail. So, nag-penetrate siya ng skin. Medyo i-copy-paste lang natin sa unang part yung life cycle ng hookworm. Nag-penetrate siya ng skin, pumunta ng circulation, napunta ng lungs. Tapos, inubo, nilunok, bumalik ng napunta ng stomach and then intestine. Okay, so nandun na tayo sa small intestine at naging adults na. Ayan. So, yung migrate by various pathways, copy-paste lang po tayo ng hookworm natin kanina. Once in the small intestine, ayan, thanks to the parthenogenetic nature of this parasite, no, yung adult natin, the parasitic female adult will now self-fertilize and will now produce the eggs. However, take note, thanks ulit to the ovoviviparous nature of your female adult, these eggs are already prepared to hatch. Now, all while inside the small intestine, these eggs will hatch and will reveal the rhabditiform larvae. Now, yung rhabditiform larvae natin, meron siyang dalawang fate. Number 1, ma-wash away siya sa stool or sumabay siya sa pag-release ng stool at makita sa fecalysis. Or number 2, maiwan na siya sa intestine and maging filariform na siya and mag-penetrate na siya ng intestine at balik na ulit tayo dito sa punta na siya sa ibang organs or pwede siyang mag-lung migration ulit at gawin yung mga various pathways niya to continue the life cycle. Okay, ulitin lang natin. Pagka-produce ng eggs, magha-hatch kasi embryonated na siya agad. And lalabas ang rhabditiform larva. May 2 fates. Number 1, lalabas ng katawan through the stool excretion at makikita sa fecalysis. Or number 2, maiiwan sa intestine at magiging, this time, in the large intestine. So, maiiwan sa large intestine, magiging filariform at babalik sa migration via various pathways and repeat a new cycle of infection. Okay, paano naman yung lumabas sa stool? Okay, aside sa makita siya sa direct fecal smear, meron na naman siyang dalawang pathway. Okay, pathway number 1, yung rhabditiform larvae na yun, nasa soil na. Kasi wala tayong proper sewage system. Pwede siyang maging filariform at maging infective ulit. So, yun yung parasitic life cycle niya. O kaya naman, pwede siyang pumunta sa free-living version wherein yung rhabditiform natin, diretsong adult worms. And then, itong version na to ng adult worms, medyo kailangan na niya ng male adult. So, mag-copulate na sila, gagawa ng eggs. Yung eggs na yon, all while in the soil na tayo, yung eggs na yon, mag-hatch, lalabas yung rhabditiform. Yung rhabditiform, magiging filariform, at magiging parasitic na. So, here, we can see na there are 2 versions or 2 future or 2 destinies na pwede magkaroon ang ating freshly released rhabditiform from the stool sample. Okay? Number 1, maging parasitic ulit. Or number 2, maging free-living version naman ng kanilang adults. Pero may catch. Okay, may catch. Yung mga free-living adults natin, hindi sila forever free-living. There will be a generation or the next generation, yung next generation na agad. The next generation should be parasitic na ulit. Okay? So, the next generation should be parasitic na ulit. So, hindi pwedeng itong bagong panganak na rhabditiform ay free-living ulit. Kailangan parasitic na siya ulit. So, parang alternate. Ganun ang ganap ng ating Strongyloides stercoralis. So, that is the very, very unique life cycle of Strongyloides stercoralis. Again, doon sa inside the body, may 2 fates. Si rhabditiform, lumabas or mag-auto-infection. Pagkalabas naman, meron na naman siyang two fates, maging infective or maging free-living. So I hope this was clear. If you have questions, you can ask them the next time we meet, or pwede din naman basahin nyo ang ating textbook para mas maintindihan po natin. How do we diagnose Strongyloides stercoralis? DFS, concentration test, kayang-kaya natin to guys. Behrman technique and the entero test. Okay, for the concentration test, what is this, the zinc sulfate method that you are saying, ma'am? This is an example of a flotation method. O, diba? Pwede daw or recommended daw ang zinc sulfate flotation method sa Strongyloides stercoralis. Ano yung Behrman technique? Ano yung Behrman technique? Ito yung may funnel, tapos yung may clip yung dulo, tapos parang gripo siya na pag tinanggal mo yung clip, bababa yung water papunta dun sa flask. Okay, hindi na tayo nakapaglagay ng picture, but I hope you can imagine yung ating Behrman technique, yung may funnel, may wire, tapos lalagyan ng stool, lalagyan ng water, tapos sa dulo ng funnel may tubing na may clip, parang gripo. And then when you release the clip, bababa yung water na may larva, di ba? Yun yung Behrman technique. Ano po yung entero test? Yung entero test, di ba, yung suswallow ka ng capsule, tapos bababa siya papunta sa small intestine kung nasa ng ating mga larva. Tapos, ano nangyari? After 4 to 6 hours, hihilahin yung tali, tapos nandun yung duodenal fluid, and dun makikita natin yung Strongyloides stercoralis. Ano naman yung Harada Mori? Na-describe na natin yan in the previous video, yung may filter paper. Duodenal aspiration. Simply, you get a fluid from the duodenum of the small intestine. And lastly, serology or immunoassay. But what is the catch? What is the disadvantage for serology or immunoassays? Strongyloides is known to cause cross-reaction with filarial parasites. Meaning, if you are in a filariasis endemic area, kung saan marami daw patients ang may filariasis, the use of immunoassay for Strongyloides may not be recommended kasi pag nag-positive siya, baka filarial nematode yung na-detect niya, hindi yung Strongyloides talaga. Okay? So these are the diagnostic methods for Strongyloides stercoralis. Okay, paano naman yung disease? Just like our previous parasites, ang tawag dito ay strongyloidiasis. Okay? Strongyloidiasis. And yes, alam na natin yung auto-infection. Ano yung parang more common name ng strongyloidiasis? Ang tawag sa kanya ay Vietnam diarrhea or Cochin China diarrhea. Bakit kaya ganito yung pangalan niya? Kasi once upon a time, nung time ng mga war sa Vietnam or doon sa Cochin China, yung old name ng Vietnam, ayan, nagkaroon ng outbreak yung mga soldiers doon. Tapos yung causative agent nun, Strongyloides. Kaya doon pinangalan yung disease, Vietnam diarrhea or Cochin China diarrhea, a time when there was an outbreak of strongyloidiasis among the soldiers. Ayun, specifically the French soldiers in Vietnam. Ayun lang. Next, honeycomb appearance of the intestinal mucosa. So, yung pathogenicity or pathophysiology ng strongyloides is that nagkukos siya ng ulceration. Again, Strongyloides stercoralis causes ulcerations in the intestine. Sa sobrang dami ng ulcer, naging honeycomb. Meaning, imagine niyo, no? Yung small intestine, dapat smooth siya. Puro butas na. Naging parang honeycomb na sila. Kaya honeycomb appearance. And speaking of ulceration, yes, magkakos siya ng ulcerative colitis. Pneumonitis, bakit may pneumonitis dito? Kasi meron siyang lung migration, di ba? Just like yung hookworm, after mag-penetrate ng skin, kailangan niya pumunta ng lungs at kailangan niyang iubo at lunukin. And nagkakos din siya ng steatorrhea, just like your hookworms, and malabsorption. And nagkakos din siya ng hyperinfection. Ano po yung hyperinfection? So, hyperinfection is for patients that are immunocompromised na Hindi lang basta infection lang. Level up. Level up ng ulcers. Level up ng diarrhea. So, hyperinfection syndrome. Not only level up ng infection but also dissemination of larva. When we say dissemination, pwede na siyang pumunta sa mga other organs like liver, heart, pancreas, kidneys. Sino ang susceptible sa hyperinfection and disseminated strongyloidiasis? Yung mga immunocompromised patients. Please read about disseminated strongyloidiasis and hyperinfection syndrome in your textbook. Okay, I will give that as reading assignment para mas maintindihan nyo kung bakit kawawa yung mga immunocompromised patients natin. Oops. For the treatment, we use albendazole and ivermectin. Epidemiology, it is prevalent in tropical and subtropical areas with heavy rainfall. It has a lower prevalence in hookworm. Parang buti na lang, no? Kasi parang mas marami siyang ganap kaysa sa hookworms natin. It has a more persistent, more persistent parang lifespan or more persistent clinical duration. Ayan. Then, hookworm. And thankfully, it is rare in the Philippines. Sana it stays that way, no? Rare in the Philippines. Kung merong animal hookworms, meron ding mga strongyloides na mas common sa animals or yung mga miscellaneous or other strongyloides species natin. First, we have Strongyloides fuelborni, which is a parasite of the monkeys, and its larva daw is found in the milk of nursing mothers. The habitat is the small intestine, and for the pathogenesis, it causes swollen belly sickness kasi swollen yung belly ng mga infected people, and may pangangati din kasi ganun din siya, skin penetration din. So, mayroon tayong swamp itch. Meron din tayong mga zoonotic parasites na nagkakos ng creeping eruption, and they are usually seen in raccoons and nutria in swamps. Kaya siya swamp itch kasi pwede siya makita sa swamps. We have the Strongyloides procyonis, which are more common in raccoons, and Strongyloides myopotami, which are more common in nutria. What would be the life cycle of Strongyloides fuelborni? So medyo wala po siyang auto-infective stage. Okay, and the diagnostic stage of this parasite is egg. Yun po yung naiba. So, isa-isahin natin. For Strongyloides fuelborni, it begins with skin penetration. Napunta din ng lungs, inubo, nilunok, napunta ng intestine. Ayan, naging adult. And parthenogenetic din siya. So, they self-fertilize. But, ano nangyari? The eggs are passed in the stool, okay, not in the intestine. So for Strongyloides fuelborni, the eggs that are already mature, embryonated na siya, pero hindi siya naka-hatch sa intestine. Lalabas muna siya ng stool sample. So, ayun, nag-hatch na, lumabas na yung rhabditiform, and nagkaroon na siya ng two fates. Na number 1, maging filariform na parasitic, or number 2, maging free-living adult. So, ano yung naging difference natin dito? Wala pong auto-infection si fuelborni, and eggs pa lang pag lumabas ng stool sample. Yun. So, that is the story of Strongyloides fuelborni. Before I end, I will discuss lang po some miscellaneous nematodes. Okay? Konti na lang to, very konti na lang. We have the Trichostrongylus species. Yung Trichostrongylus, minsan, no, nakikisama siya sa hookworms natin and Strongyloides. So, in other references, as a group of 3 sila dinidiscuss. Kasi medyo humahawig din siya, no, sa hookworm and Strongyloides. However, medyo mas simple na po yung life cycle niya. It is a parasite of herbivores, mga cattle natin, di ba? And human infection is only accidental. The species that infect humans are your Trichostrongylus orientalis, Trichostrongylus colubriformis, and Trichostrongylus axae. Take note, even though na medyo sinasama natin siya sa hookworms and sa strongyloides, the mode of transmission is ingestion. Okay? The mode of transmission is ingestion, and the habitat is the small intestine. The infective stage is the L3 filariform pa din, pero ayun nga po, kinakain po, hindi siya nag-skin penetrate. And the diagnostic stage is the egg. What will be the life cycle of Trichostrongylus? So once upon a time, paano to? Let's say, what if no, yung vegetation, nagsalad-salad tayo, hindi natin nahugasan. Meron pang filariform larvae na nakadikit dun sa ating salad, dun sa ating cabbage. Tas nakain natin siya. Yan yung example ng ingestion ng Trichostrongylus or accidental ingestion ng Trichostrongylus. It has a simpler life cycle kasi pagka-swallow, punta agad sa small intestine, become adults, copulate, and release eggs. What can we notice here? The eggs of Trichostrongylus are similar to hookworms. Okay? The eggs of Trichostrongylus are similar to hookworms. Eventually, those eggs will hatch, releasing the rhabditiform, and the life cycle will now continue. And so they resemble the hookworm nga po, and however, they are considered larger and have pointed eggs. Okay, for the pathogenesis, they cause blood loss as well, and the treatment is mebendazole. Okay, so this is our super last na talaga. Kaya natin ito guys, the Anisakis larva. So ano naman po yung Anisakis species? The common name for this parasite is codworm or herringworm. The host, they have two. The intermediate host is the microcrustaceans, yung mga small shrimps natin. Yun. So, microcrustaceans. And the final host is the marine mammals. The paratenic host will be the fish and squids. And because we also eat, ganun ulit, raw seafood, we can accidentally acquire this parasite. The mode of transmission is ingestion. The infective stage is the L3 larva, and the diagnostic stage is also L3 larva. Bakit kaya nagkaganon? Ano ba to? Umikot yung life cycle, next generation na ba to? Or eto pa rin sila, na kung ano yung kinain mo, yun din yung lalabas sa laboratory specimen mo, no? So that is the question. Now, what is Anisakis larva or Anisakis species? They are obtained from raw or undercooked seafood. Ano yung mga raw na yon? Yung yung marine mammals, di ba? Yung mga paratenic host niya na fish and squid. Pag nakain natin yon, pwede nating ma-acquire yung L3 filariform. Ayan. So, sashimi pa, di ba? Ayan sila. Kaya, what is our moral lesson? Do not eat raw seafood. Or kung kakain ka man ng mga Japanese restaurant, make sure na lang na reputable, no? Yung restaurant na kakainan nyo. So that is the example of the larva in your raw seafood. So what is the life cycle of your Anisakis species? So dito muna tayo sa egg para maintindihan natin kung paano tayo accidentally nai-infect. Okay? Once upon a time, merong egg. May egg na nandun sa water. So the eggs became embryonated in the water, and the L3 larvae will form in the eggs. And then the eggs will hatch, releasing the filariform agad. O, di ba? Ang bilis. Wala nang rhabditiform. Diretso na tayo. So, L3 filariform will hatch from the eggs and as ensheathed, free-swimming forms. So, swim yung mga L3 larvae sa water until they are ingested by our intermediate host, the microcrustaceans, like the very small shrimp, the okoy. The future okoy, tama ba okoy, no? Yung may batter, tapos may mga shrimp sa loob. Ayan. So, kinain na sila nung microcrustaceans. And then, following the food chain, yung microcrustacean, kakainin ng fish. And then, doon sa fish, the L3 larvae will be released from the microcrustacean during digestion. And the larva will now go to their muscle tissue. Tapos, following the food chain ulit, eventually, this fish will be eaten by the intended final host, which are the marine mammals. And once they are in the marine mammals, ganun din. So, pag na-digest nila yung meat ng fish, yung larva, ma-unleash sila. And then, they will now develop into adults in their intestine. And then, they will copulate and they will produce eggs. And then, those eggs will now be released in the water. So, that is the natural story of anisakis. So, nasan tayo nanggaling? So, itong mga fish na to, di ba? Dapat pang marine mammal sila. Pero because we also eat raw or undercooked fish, the larvae that are in the muscle tissues of the fish will be unleashed, and will now will be unleashed, tapos nasa sa atin na siya, or will be unleashed in the human body. But because we are not the intended host of anisakis, the anisakis L3 larva will not mature into adults. Again, because we are not the intended host of anisakis, the L3 larva that we accidentally ingested through the raw seafood, they cannot mature into adults. So, saan na lang sila pupunta? They will now go to our tissues, and remain stuck, until the larva can be removed via surgery, or endoscopy. So, that is the story of Anisakis species. Again, unlike Capillaria, that we discussed in our previous meetings, na kahit accidental lang tayo, nako-continue natin yung life cycle nila, nagiging adult sila at nagpo-produce ng eggs. For anisakis, hindi po ganun. We cannot facilitate or we cannot contribute to their development. And so, they remain as L3 larvae until such time that they have to be surgically removed from our body, or minsan naman navo-vomit natin sila. So that is the story of anisakis. Saan papasok yung mga paratenic host? So following the food chain ulit, this fish can be eaten by another fish and another fish and another fish. But unless that fish is a marine mammal, it will not develop into an adult. So kung itong fish na to ay kinain ng isa pang fish, hindi po siya magiging adult. Instead, ganun ulit, ma-unleash yung larva, lilipat lang sa tissue ng bagong fish, tapos hindi pa rin siya magmamature. Until such time na makain siya ng totoong intended final host niya, which is the marine mammal. That's the only time na pag na-unleash siya, magiging adult siya, and magre-reproduce sila, at magre-release ng bagong eggs in the water. So that is the contribution of the paratenic host in the life cycle of anisakis. Ano lang sila, it helps the parasite reach the marine mammal through food chain. By following the food chain sa mga seafood or sa mga sea animals natin. So again, ano nangyayari sa anisakis? Wala. Walang nangyayari sa atin. Nasa stuck po sila or nagwo-wander lang sila sa body ng human host. And the only way it can be diagnosed is by the demonstration of worms by gastroscopy, surgery, or vomiting. So gastroscopy, surgery, or vomiting. What will be the disease or clinical manifestation of anisakis sa human host? The disease will be called anisakiasis or anisakidosis. And the symptoms will be abdominal pain, tingling throat syndrome, where the oropharynx is involved, peritoneal irritation. Ano yung peritoneal? Yung abdominal cavity natin, eosinophilic granulomatous reaction, and thickening of the intestinal wall. So, bakit merong tingling throat syndrome? So, nung kinain mo yung sashimi na merong larva doon, so that larva can, anong tawag dito? Can irritate your throat. Ayun. So, the larva can irritate your throat. Kikilitiin ka niya. Swim siya dun sa throat mo. Or crawl siya dun sa throat mo hanggang sa it will cause you to cough up the larva. So, yun yung tingling throat syndrome. Okay. And then for the treatment, ayun nga po, you can manually remove the worm with the help of camera, no? So gastroscopy or gastroscopic removal of worm. We can also administer albendazole. And take note that this infection is considered temporary or transient. So transient lang siya kasi nga po, you have a tendency to vomit the larva or to cough up the larva during infection. For the prevention naman, how do we prevent this parasite? Okay lang naman kumain ng sashimi as long as there is proper preparation of the food and proper cooking of the food. Aside from properly cooking, freezing the fish can also help. Ayun. So, did you know that freezing fish can help kill the parasites? So, nagfo-fall yun under sa proper preparation. Meaning, hindi po pwedeng pagkasungkit mo galing sa dagat, kainin mo na agad. Hindi po pwedeng ganon. Dapat i-freeze muna natin or iprito mo, no? Properly cook the fish before eating. So, what are the examples of raw seafood that from which we can acquire anisakis? Ayan, so yung mga sushi, sashimi, ayan sila. Ayun. So, bakit may bagoong dyan? Diba? Alam niyo ba na yung bagoong ay gawa sa shrimp? So, yung mga small shrimps, if yung bagoong na yun ay medyo hindi siya niluto ng maayos or na-prepare ng maayos, pwede, no, na may anisakis doon. And, ayun nga po, kinilaw ulit, the one that we discussed previously. Okay? So, that is the end of our video on Strongyloides stercoralis, and this is also the end of our prelim coverage, the lesson 3B or lesson 3 part 2. So, during the midterm period, we are going to discuss na the tissue nematodes. That will be the lesson 3 part 3 or lesson 3C. Pero, for the prelim period, hanggang dito na lang muna tayo. Okay? So, thank you. Kung umabot ka sa point na to at hindi mo ako tinulugan at hindi mo ako finast forward, thank you kasi nakinig ka at nag-persevere ka. I hope you learned a lot from the 2 videos and good luck in your prelim examination. Thank you everyone and God bless.